Okay, I have started the recording. Do we have everyone here?
Baba, you are here? Baba?
Yes, here. I have no clue where he is then.
Perhaps he's on another calling. I sent him a message.
While Baba is coming, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sure. Who is speaking? We cannot see the face.
That's Akalai. That's Akalai from Kyrgyzstan.
Hello, Akalai. Yes.
Hello.
It's very nice to hear you.
Thank you, guys. It's very nice to hear you too. So I'm muting my microphone then.
Okay, perfect. Akalai, we will start right after the Senegalese team, okay?
Yes, sure. Perfect.
Thank you. Sorry, работа.
Hi, everybody.
Success story, говорит, пусть добавить, что надо. У меня места нету. Я и так делаю маленькие истории.
Hi, everybody. I am Rasul, Mrs. Faye. And I left the other member of Senegalese team, 2 experts and 1 internship to introduce themselves.
Hello, Rasul.
Hello.
It's Nursulu from Kyrgyzstan.
Hi, Nursul, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fine, very fine. Where is Janalai? She's not here.
She will join.
Okay. Mrs. Ngom, expert in women in conflict transformation and General Secretary of Women Platform for Peace, will introduce herself. And after we have the Vice President of Women Platform, Mrs. Dacosta Leonie Gomis. And we have another internship, intern. I let them to introduce themselves. No?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. I'm from the team of Senegal, but we're calling from Casamance, precisely Ziguinchor, and more precisely in the headquarters of Women's Platform for Peace in Casamance. We're very pleased to have this webinar meeting with you. So let me just remind that I am Mrs. Faima, the Secretary General of Women's Platform for Peace in Casamance. Hope that we'll have a nice meeting. Okay, so see you in a while.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, I'm Leonie Gomis, one of the person who will be talking with. I'm the Vice President of the Women Platform for Peace in Casamance. And it's nice to have you with us. Thank you. And I think that we will exchange in a while. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fat Bintumane. I am an intern at the platform of Women of Peace in Casamance.
Baba?
Yes.
Baba, you are here.
Yes, I'm here.
You can do the introduction.
Yeah, of course.
Or we let the other participant to present themselves, and after you do the introduction.
How do you want to do it? I think I can just start with the introduction.
Bawa?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you perfectly.
Hello, Baba. We hear you.
Wait, I was just asking, how do you want to do it? Do you want me to do the introduction and then you will introduce yourself, the other participant?
The participants have already introduced themselves, so you could proceed with the introduction part.
So great, I'm the late comer. Sorry for that.
No worries. No.
Thank you guys. Good to meet you again virtually. I don't know what I have missed, but I think we are here to talk about conflict transformation involving women and young people, youth workers. So I just want to start with a short history of one of the great writers, one of the great persons in the conflict issue, the one who is considered as the father of peace building studies, that is John Galton. Why? Because the work we're doing, even if it is a webinar, but it's important because 50 years ago, John Galton didn't imagine that young people will be talking, will be meeting in Skype, talking about transformation. When he asked, that was in the 50s, books on peace wishes at the Central Library of Sweden. There was no book on peace building, nothing. That was in the 50s, in peace wishes. So today we're talking about conflict transformation, which is very, very recent approach and concept in the 90s. It was mostly developed by, of course, we had prominent authors such as Galton, George Simmel, who have been who theorized it in the 50s, 70s. But the pioneer, the leading voice of the whole concept of conflict transformation was John Paul Lederach, in a structural approach, a global, a comprehensive approach for more change, for more impact change on structural level, relational, cultural, and personal. John Galton mostly focused on structural change, but the basic what we need to understand is why did we need to go to something an approach, a very creative approach, simply because every important change that happened in this life comes out of a conflict. So we need conflicts as a normal thing in life, as a natural, as a neutral thing in life. So the way we understand conflicts command the way we bring response to them. If we see them as normal, neutral, and natural, so we should let them be and transform them for the change they can bring. So we see that it's different from resolving a problem. That is the approach of conflict resolution. Transformation is not the opposite of conflict resolution. What we do not want to do is to create lines between conflict management approaches. What we need to do is understand the way we understand them, because we can have at the same time conflict resolution and transformation, because many organizations cannot, or many stakeholders cannot understand. I mean, if they can understand, but the implementation of the whole concept that Lederach theorized is very is not so there is a small window in that implementation, so we need to work on it. Thank you. So we need to work on it. Why do we need to work on it? As an example, the most transformative peace agreement in recent years, in 25 years, happened in Colombia. And that peace agreement was mostly. Can you please put your microphone on mute, please? Senegal, can you put your microphone on mute, please? Thank you.
It is done. Thank you.
Thank you. I was saying the reason what we can regard as a transformative peace agreement is the Colombia peace agreement achieved. And it was mostly accompanied by the Kroc Institute by Jean Paul Lederach and a Norwegian scholar. But if we look at it, the GFA, the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, the Capulcatec Agreement in El Salvador, the CPA, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in South Sudan, all those peace agreements didn't address root causes because after the peace agreement, we had situation, high rate of criminal of crime in El Salvador. Corruption is still the class difference between classic basic need of populations. It was root causes that were not addressed by the peace agreement. The Good Friday Agreement left a chaotic differences between Catholic and Protestant riots, basic needs in a European country, and that was a civil there was a civil war in a not in a developing country, but in a developed country. So that peace agreement didn't address root causes. CPA in South Sudan didn't address root causes because we didn't have that transformative approach. We had ethnic differences, ethnic conflict in South Sudan until recently in September with the peace agreement that was signed between Riek Machar and the president. So the basic question and the big question is, how do we draw out positive change out of conflict by addressing the root causes of conflict in a sustainable way? This is what our experts are going to deal with and talk about. The need to, even if the window is small, the need to go to transformation in our approach, even though we have a resolution approach. But the good thing is we have a trend talking more and more about transformation, even we are doing resolution. This is giving a window and a transition toward transformation. So mostly it is organizations, stakeholders at second and third level, grassroots level, that can bring about this change. The webinar we're doing at this time is something that can go toward this. So this is the short presentation I just wanted to make for you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Babu. We can start the talk.
Rasul, repeat this again. I could not hear you.
Rudy, he's not here.
Rudy.
If Rudy is, have not something to add, we can start the first talk.
May I add, I believe that we, Kyrgyz team from Kyrgyzstan will be mostly focusing on the instruments and tools of how to combat this conflict and how to move on to a towards the peace building stage. And we have invited two experts, Akılay Karimova on youth and peace building, as well as Dania Baysubanova, who is actually joining us from the States, peace building expert. And we before that, before any of you have any questions, perhaps hello. Perhaps we could share information after we get your questions. Both Nursulu and Janulai have a short presentation where they elaborate on all the tools that are available out there, and then we will turn to our experts from Kyrgyzstan who could actually say what actually works in the reality, what is applicable, and what are the tools and methods that are really good on paper but do not work well in various conflicts. So if none of you have any questions, Rasul, I believe your team starts first, right? And then we turn to Kyrgyzstan. Hello, Rasul? Rasul, could you please turn your mic on? I believe Rasul cannot hear me. So if you guys want to pose any questions now, you could do it. Just to stay maybe on the same page. Okay. Oh, how come? Amelia, did you have the question or no?
Hey, Lydia.
Lydia?
No, it was not a question. I just asked for the name of the authors at the end. I think they are on the nose.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was it. If I have any question, I will just come up.
Rasul, are you ready to start or shall we go first? Hello? Rasul? We cannot hear you.
Lydia,
Yes.
we don't hear you.
Yes, you will see me. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here. Do you guys want to start first or shall we go? The agenda states that you go first, so please go ahead. Okay.
We don't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now.
Okay, please go ahead. It's, I believe, transformation.
The network is not good.
I will type. So I believe there are some problems with the internet. So we are apologizing for this. Rasul, can you hear me?
Yes, hear you.
Okay.
We can let the Senegal expert to do their first presentation.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Let me just remind that I am Mom from Women's Platform for Peace in Ghana. I am supposed to discuss on the legal framework as far as conflict transformation or peace building is concerned. Can you hear me? Can you get me?
We can hear you, but we cannot see you. Maybe you could focus the camera on yourself a little bit, shift it. Hello, Baba. Is this you or no?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
That's the problem.
Please go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. So as far as the legal framework is concerned, first of all, most of the time what we talk about logically is that we refer to a kind of international framework that we base most of the time our analysis on the third building. We know that there are other resolutions that talk about that, but the 1325 is the main one. So as far as the different aspects that are concerned, we can talk about the prevention, participation, protection in mainly or in the rescue operations or in other fields. Talk about the legal framework, we have a kind of setup, the kind of international framework at the international level. But when we come to the national or the country level, we have the resolution that most of the time, or the laws that are ratified by many countries, such as Senegal. But when we can face some different problems or even some big issues. Because for me, it's not just enough that for women to say that we know the 1325, we've been, I don't know, trained in the 1325, we know what it's talk about, we know that we have this right and so and so. But what is important, or the most important for me, is for women not just to know, but to get sensitized enough the kind of necessary involvement of women as far as conflict transformation or even peace building is concerned. Because as citizens, for me, it's something that is a kind of a duty as citizens. But when we take the example, for example, of here in Casamance, many women who are in the organizations, they know the resolutions. They talk about them. They can, kind of make much theory about the resolution. But when it comes to the grassroots level, there are some problems. And it is important that they have this in their hands, in their mind, whenever they are in the field, implementing project, addressing the population that are at the grassroots level, because they are the main targets for me. So it's not just enough, to sensitize even populations to know, for them to know that they have these rights, but how can we ensure, or how can we help them, meaning kind of foster these rights that are the 1325 resolution and the other ones, because I think that is the main guarantee for them, or that will guarantee their participation, their involvement, but also their kind of awareness of the fact that they not just have the duty, but they are able, they have not just the legal abilities, but the personal abilities, to transform things. And for me, it is very important. If you take some examples, we have mainly here in Casamance, but we can have an example, for example, in the Congo, where we have a kind of the cross-border initiative, that was a very good means, to kind of transform or to manage conflict. For me, it is very important. Women to kind of go from a kind of a peace building aspect to a transformation aspect, and know while doing this that they have the legal framework, or they have the laws, that ensure their participation, but also meaning not just participating, but doing it in a kind of a sustainable, in a kind of sustainable aspect. Because we have organizations at the grassroots level that most of the time can last, I don't know, decades. But what is important for this organization is at a certain time to point, at that kind of achievements. And for me, it is very, very important. Even if the framework can be international, for me, the approach should be, first of all, local. And when we say local, we mean what we have here, for example, in Casamance, not just ensuring that women, have the right, to demand, peace, but also for them to be aware enough of the fact that they should get involved enough, is it okay? Reliable enough, for I don't know, the stakeholders, to meaning just to trust them, because it's for me a matter of trust. First of all, when we have some partners or stakeholders, most of the time that trust you, it is for me easier to have some kind of a sustainable achievement. Because when we take our example, we have been, I don't know, the Women's Platform for Peace in Casamance, was created 10 years ago. Now we don't have, the possibility, or we don't have, for the time being, we don't have peace talks, and we are demanding these peace talks, kind of inclusive peace talk, where women could be not just heard, not just their voice heard, but their meaning their input taken into consideration. And the main input from women is that to bring, okay, on the negotiation table the achievement that they had with the population, okay, meaning at the grassroots levels. And for this, we have many, I don't know, it was in many domains or many as kind of being just like Baba, kind of just a little theory about what we understand, okay, from the legal framework are the first thing. Okay, so thank you. Now I let the floor to our other expert, the eminent expert, the Vice President, Mrs. Leonie Denis. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Faye, for your presentation. I think that our partners are listening and they understand what you say. In fact, it was clear about what she said on legal framework. I think that it's very important to have this webinar to exchange experience because we face the same problems without having the same solutions. And it's very important to have a talk, to exchange, because what we do here in Senegal may be useful to you because you don't do the same. So this webinar is very important. And why do you think we need change? We're going to see it in the presentation. For my presentation, we're going to talk about women in conflict transformation. In this part, after the introduction, we will talk about the achievements in the first stage. Then we'll come to the constraints and the recommendations in the third part, and then we'll conclude. For the introduction, we know that the African continent has been ravaged by many conflicts of all kinds. We can talk about the genocides, we can talk about separatism in some countries. We are facing many kinds of conflict. And these conflicts disintegrate the social fabric. So we need to put things together. The youth, the women, and everybody in the societies are threatened, and the societies are divided by hatred following these conflicts I'm talking about. So the traditional African system recognized the wife's role as a discreet advisor to the husband in particular. Because if we take Africa a few years ago and Africa now, we see that there is a very big difference in women taking a decision. First, the women's role, the wife's role is a discreet one. She is an advisor to the husband, and she also takes an active role in consolidating solidarity and social harmony in general. So we also use education, and this education in traditional values was a priority and provided by the family to the children. So the family were in charge to educate the children through tales, proverbs, and various occasions. So this education was not the same we have now. This education was led through tales, through proverbs, and other various occasions, many circumcision, etc. So they take these opportunities to educate, to instill values in these children, in their children. They were the virtues of peaceful cohabitation, of peaceful coexistence. These were notably represented by temperance. A woman should be tempered, she should show solidarity, respect for the truth, sense of work and effort. A woman should respect hierarchy, she should be honest, decent and modest, and we will also have tolerance, sense of good and benevolence. A woman should love her neighbors and she should respect life. So in this traditional Africa, these are things that have been imposed on women. If a woman does not do this, she may be sanctioned. So in almost all African countries, girls had been socialized the same way. The education of children was reserved for women. It was she who played for the greatest role in the transmission of these values to the new generations. When in cases of conflict or violence, the woman's life must always be spared. Unfortunately, nowadays, those values that put people together are lost. But we still have hope that we can come back to those values because people are working to bring back those values that were the source of good coexistence among the different communities. Whether in Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Uganda, the DRC, Ivory Coast, or Darfur, or even Senegal, women generally find themselves in different situations in times of conflict. Their role can both be passive or active, depending on their age, their origin, and their geopolitical position, and even their interest. If we take the case of Casamance, women have become influential stakeholders, including in a political, social, and economic level. So in this part, we see the women's platform achievements, the difficulties they are faced to, and the recommendations we're going to give for better results. So we're going to deal with part 2, which is women in conflict transformation in Senegal. So in this piece, conflict transformation, we will take the case of Senegal and precisely the Women Platform for Peace in Casamance. So this is the example we're going to deal with. First of all, we're going to talk about the achievements. What did the Women Platform achieve in this conflict transformation? And talking about this achievement, talking about this achievement, we can say that conflict transformation is a very complex process. And the solution is not unequivocal. It means that we cannot have one single meaning when we talk about conflict transformation. Then the actions to be taken are complex as well. So if the transformation is complex, so the actions are also complex and are actions on the long term. They are not actions that will give us results immediately. And these actions are not necessarily spectacular. It means that we can have small accomplishments in these conflict transformation. Since the beginning of the platform, its actions are meant to unburden and alleviate the whole population in Casamance. And through actions in favor of women, because women pay the heaviest tribute, it means that when conflict broke, women lost a lot of their capacity, a lot of their role in the society. So it's time now to take back those responsibilities they had in the past. Conflict transformation can be done at several stages. Okay, so we can transform a conflict at a political level. We can transform a conflict in the economic level, and we can transform a conflict in a social level. So we should talk about these three levels in conflict transformation that the platform has been working on. So women have played an influential role in the Casamance peace process in southern Senegal, where a rebel movement has been fighting for independence since 1982. What is different in this conflict is a conflict that has been going on since 1982, and it is considered to be the longest conflict in Africa, mainly in West Africa. So a rebel movement started in 1982, and in 2010, the Casamance women decided to come together to join efforts to propel their voices into the formal political arena together to end the conflict. So, as wives, as life givers, as sisters, the women decided that it's enough. So we have to be there to propel our voices and be heard to bring change in this conflict that is going on up to now. Even though there is lull, but we are still in this conflict. The UN resolution 1325 comforts the women of Casamance to be part of the solution to the conflict. As I said a while, in Africa and mainly in Senegal and or in the Casamance communities, women were considered when their position was considered when there is a conflict within a community. They are listened to. But with this conflict, they lost all those considerations they had. So with the UN resolution 1325, they are comforted that women have to take part in conflict resolution. The platform actions in transformation of the conflict are threefold. We can talk about this transformation at the political level or economic level and then at the social level. First of all, when we talk about transformation in the political level, what can we say? What did the platform do? The Women Platform for Peace in Casamance is working to the political transformation of the conflict in implementing advocacy actions towards the protagonist. So it means that when they started working on this transformation, they tried to bring those protagonists to join, to sit around a table, to have negotiations, to talk together, to discuss, and see what is possible to achieve. So the platform is trying to bring the protagonists around a table for negotiation. This is not yet achieved, but the platform is working for that to be. So actions are being taken to pursue that process, to link the state and the combatants in a peace process. So we managed to have different advocacy activities, which I'm going to tell you in a while. So the platform will first of all manage to have access to some MFDC branches. The MFDC is the combatants that want to be independent from the Senegal. So they call them MFDC. So the platform managed to meet with many branches of the MFDC. So what I just want to make a clarification. When I talk about branches, we have different factions of the MFDC because they have split. We have the combatants, we have the political wing, we have the diaspora. So we have many different branches of the MFDC. So the platform managed to meet some of them. Still, the platform has to work to reach the rest of the combatants and the women that belong to the movement. You know that when we have a conflict, some women, as I said a while, take part, whether for the combatants or for the government, and they take part in different ways. Some women even take the guns, they even fight. Some just only support them, physical, moral support. So we also want to, the platform also want to reach those women belonging to the MFDC. So the advocacy activities to transform the conflict that the platform has been doing are, the platform organized a symposium in Dakar. So this means that the conflict is in Casamance, but it's not only the Casamance people that must be involved in this conflict resolution. So we have to take it at the highest level. That's why we organized a symposium in Dakar. And then we organized another activity which they call a convergence of women. It means that all the women of Senegal, of the Gambia and Guinea-Bissau met in Dakar to talk about this conflict in Casamance. So, and we also, after that convergence, we have a peace table in Dakar. It was the last activity, and which this activity was an advocacy activity because the platform invited the authorities. The president has even been invited, and the MFDC has been represented in that convergence and peace table. So these actions are meant to the political authorities to take action to decide to come together to a peace process. The President of the Republic has also received the platform and expresses his trust. Yet we haven't had an opportunity to discuss with the President to tell him what we really want. We also have peace marches and also the organization of regional federations and networks of women to share their expertise on conflict resolution. And as I said, it's important to have people together, even those that are not living in Casamance. We need them to build peace, to transform this conflict into positive action. Why do we need to change? I asked this question a while. We transform what exists and is not good. When something is not good, we need to transform it or to change it in something good. We need to change something harmful to make something that is new. But to bring that change, as I said too, it is complicated. So we have to know what are the needs of the population we want to bring change for. We want to bring change, but what kind of change does the population need? So the platform, the women platform, women are engaged and dedicated to minimize women's separation. They implement, now we're going to talk about the economic aspect of the transformation. The platform has many women association members working in economic empowerment. What I omit to tell you is that the platform is an umbrella association having within itself associations, a federation of associations. So these associations work on in economic empowerment of women at the grassroots level. So they are engaged and dedicated to minimize women's separation. So they implement income generating activities and build capacities in women's human rights, good governance, participation, and leadership. And we know that when women are empowered and knowledgeable, they can themselves be agents of transformation of conflicts. The transformation of a conflict starts with individuals. I think that Baba talked about that a while ago. We cannot bring transformation if the individuals are not involved in that transformation. So they have to decide to be part of that transformation. And for them to decide to be part of that transformation, we need to build their capacity. And that's what the platform is doing. So they are building their capacity to raise their awareness that they need to be part of that change we want for them, that the platform wants for them. And the income generating activities are most of the income generating activities. It's fruit and vegetable processing. Also, they also have dyeing. They dye material, okay, and they also have poultry farming and many other activities on income generating. They also make soap. We have a very wide range of activities in income generating. Now we move to the social transformation through education. The Women Platform is transforming the conflict in building peaceful relationships. How does she build the peaceful relationship? We have what they call community meetings. And these community meetings are led in the very remote areas. These meetings bring people together, bring women and men together, bring the youth with men and women together to talk about their perception of the conflict. And this is very important too, because it allows them to externalize what they felt during this conflict, to express their feelings. And I think that when a person expresses his feelings about something that happened to him, this allows him to free himself. So I think that this is a very important activity that the platform is having with the communities. So one of the activities is implementing various projects in the communities that are affected by the crisis. So it helps them come out of violence and overcome the tough living conditions caused by the war in Casamance. After many years of fights between the state and the MFDC, the populations need to externalize their internal sufferings, to be listened to be empowered to lead their own developments and manage the conflict that may arise in their localities. And for this, we have many projects. We can talk about what we call, it was a project that built their capacity in peace process when they face a conflict, an internal conflict, a conflict within their community, how to come out of that conflict. So this project their capacity, and they have village committees to talk about peace when they. I said that we have community. We also have humanitarian relief with mainly one of the projects that is called SOS Fonyi. This community in Fonyi had faced a very tough period, so they were faced with their villages were burnt, so they need food, they need clothes, and the platform initiated what we call SOS Fonyi. This is to gather things, food, clothes, and bring to the population. So this is humanitarian. We also have a very big project, and this is a new one to Casamance. It is the Kulimaro Center. With the conflict, we have very difficult, our girls are facing drawbacks from the conflict, and we have many girls that are pregnant and that are chased from their families. So this Kulimaro Center is here to help them. So the Kulimaro Center helps them to take in charge they are pregnant, so and chased from their families. They are taken in Kulimaro. We have also what we call core leaders, women that have been trained to take in charge in remote places, to take in charge those women victims of violence or sexual abuse. So they refer them to the center, and the center brings them all the needed all what they need to come out of that situation. So I think that time is against me, so I have to go fast. So I'm going to skip this part, and when you have questions, I'll come back to it. Just to talk about some constraints. According to health, women's peace work is sometimes seen as an extension of women's natural role in the society, causing it to be unrecognized at a political level and at the international level. It means that what women do, people think that it's natural because a woman in traditional Africa had in charge to bring peace in the community. Another constraint is the lack of recognition of women's contribution in the peace process. And this does not encourage and value the women's work. They are just considered as givers of life. Another constraint is the full participation of women in conflict transformation. They have a difficulty in meeting other factions, for example, and even the president. The platform would like to meet the president and the factions. The combatants lack confidence in the platform. Another constraint is the associations lack logistics and finance to implement the change they want to see in the communities, according to the needs and the needs analysis that have been carried out in the communities during the meeting. And to finish, I'm just going to give you some recommendations about. I have shortened, I have cut up my presentation because time is against me, as I said. One of the recommendations is to support women's association with sufficient means, because they lack, as I said a while ago, they lack logistics, financial means. Also, they need to have capacities on the peace process. So they need capacity building on the peace process. Okay, another recommendation is to strengthen women's forum. We have a forum between 3 countries, Senegal, the Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau. So we need to strengthen, because this is a new thing that has been started here in Casamance. So we have that forum that will be dealing with the peace process in Senegal, in the Gambia, and in Guinea-Bissau. And last but not least, another recommendation, the last one, is to implement the laws and resolutions that have been taken and signed by our countries. My colleague said a while ago that Senegal and other African countries signed conventions, but they don't implement them in the country. So as a conclusion, African women have a special role to play. They are involved in negotiating and peace-building processes. So unfortunately, given the economic and political marginalization in African society, women are not always well placed to play an effective. Nevertheless, the African women nowadays are very engaged to bring their contribution to all the peace process stages. Thank you for listening, and I'm sorry for being long because we have a lot of things to tell about this peace transformation in Casamance. Thank you very much for attention. Okay, the floor is yours.
Lydia?
Yes, can we have questions, but maybe we could pose them a bit later, yeah, after we also conduct our talks, yeah? Do you guys, please, if you have any questions, perhaps you could just write them down and then ask all experts and participants. I am now going to share a presentation with you. These are the basics of basic tools that are being used among youth, okay? And I'm going to give the floor to Janilai and Nursulu. Girls, are you here? Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Hello. Yeah. So I cannot open the camera. Okay. Let me start with the conflict. Like generally, what's conflict and like conflict transformation. But I know Baba started, but we also wanted to say about it. Like, as we all know, conflict is an expressed struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, and interference from the other party is needed in achieving their goals. And conflict transformation is a third way to view the conflict. Like the third party sees conflict not as a problem to be managed or solved, but as an opportunity to strengthen the common life of any group. And like I work with youth, and I work in youth organization, and we have like conflict transformation and conflict prevention group, and in our organization we use different methods and approaches, and I would like to share with you the best methods or approaches in conflict transformation and preventing. First is like we use open discussions. In our organization, we openly discuss how to solve issues that will lead to conflict or which we already have the conflict. And like in every office meeting, we have a rotating schedule with roles. Like our method is like feministic method, where like in order to prevent the conflict, we use this method, and in that method we have different roles, like conflict preventer, understanding facilitator, viber, and translator, like to prevent the conflict. And if like the youth in we have a lot of youth who comes to our organization, and if they have some problems or like which leads to conflict, we always use open discussions. And like in conflict situation, like the second approach is like to imagine a shared future. To approach a conflict, like one person can start with answering how can we create something better for both of us, like for both people, because in conflict are at least two conflicting sides. So we need to envision opponent as a part of our future, like to transform the conflict. And the third one is sometimes in the conflict, there might be controversial or debatable situations that will lead to fighting, and third method is like recognizing and knowing to quit. Like a conflict cannot be transformed unless both sides are willing to negotiate in good faith. So if other party is committed to being controversial, we may need to walk away, or like holding pattern, or like take a break, not to talk with each other, to calm down and then come back. Yeah, and conflict transformation is not the same as capitulation, like we think in like we learned from our organization. Yes, and If you have questions, or Jangle can continue.
Thank you, Nursulu. Janalai, are you here with us?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Okay, so Janalai will focus further on the tools, okay, and the ways of managing the conflict. So if you have all the nice questions, please write them down, save them for later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Nursulu has already started talking about methods which are used in conflict transformation, and let me just tell you something about tools. Before starting discussing about tools in conflict transformation, we all need to answer the question, the two main questions that conflict transformation addresses. These are the first one is what we need to stop, and the second question is what do we hope to build. And according to these questions, and we go further on the strategies and tools which we use to transform any conflict. Tools in conflict transformation, like using tools in conflict transformation also depends on the type of the conflict and on the level at which the conflict takes place. So yeah, first we need to analyze what kind of conflict it is and what level it is on, and then we better use these tools that I will tell you now. So these are the first tool is about changing perception about conflicts. So the second one is renouncing violence. Tools in conflict transformation are also always connected with readiness to discuss and accepting other views. Nursulu has already talked about negotiation, and this is also about it. Introducing a third party with skills in dialogue and trust and feel empathy to the other sides, and balance out our own interests. So yeah, I'm sorry if I'm too slow. Yeah, I will speak louder now. Yeah, and the further conflict strategies are about the main patterns of response to conflicts are the first one is avoidance, the second one is accommodation, then confrontation, cooperation, and compromise. Psychologists have found that most conflicts follow this three-stage pattern. And the first step is when someone tries to cooperate with another person, and if it doesn't work, here comes the second step. And the second step is about when someone tries to find a solution at all costs, and that person puts more pressure on the other person as long as that person is not willing to cooperate or discuss. So the person who is interested in transforming conflict puts more pressure, puts more effort to solve the problem. And the third step is about is when one person shows an interest in cooperating and another one shows willing to cooperate with. So these are really good practices in conflict transformation. And yeah, psychologists, most of the psychologists say that this usually works. And we have some methods of conflict transformation. I will tell you something about, you can see them as well in the presentation. And these are, the first one is arbitration, and then comes facilitation, intervention, litigation, mediation, and negotiation. And I would like to mark that one of the most effective ones of these all are mediation and negotiation, since they are being practiced in many cases, in many conflict cases. So yeah, and mediation and negotiation are known as one of the most like quite quite solution of the problem without any violence and without any fights, and yeah, so that's about the second part of our presentation. And you can find some more information about mediation in our presentation.
Thank you, Janilai. So the rest of the information, as well as the definitions, you can find everything in the presentation. But the most interesting thing that we would like to focus on is we would turn to two experts, one on peace conflict, use and peace building, as well as conflict transformation expert. So I will now give you the floor to Akalai, who has an extensive experience working in conflict, post-conflict zones, let's say, and who can actually elaborate more on what aspects work, which methods are applicable, and so she will share the insights. So Akalai, please.
Yes. Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yes, perfectly.
Cool. So I want to start my presentation with appreciation. Thank you for inviting me for this call, and I feel really delighted to be part of you guys, to be part of this discussion. And so before I start the presentation on what works and what not really works, so I would like to focus a little bit on the context of my country that I represent. This is Kyrgyzstan, and that's the country in Central Asia that has inherited the independence after the Soviet Union collapse, and then it's been almost 3 decades since we've got independence and became the independent country. So before that, so since we inherited the independence from the Soviet Union, the legacy of the Soviet Union policies, according to use, first of all, and then conflicts, were inherited from that system. What it means for Kyrgyzstan is that still nowadays we struggle with the ageism, which is widespread, and since this ageism is still in the air, many policies that have been developed in this country towards youth development, and that has also include the policies on conflict transformation, were mostly developed top to bottom, which means that during the Soviet Union, there was a communist party, and that communist party decided every aspect of life for the citizens, including youth, and the voice of youth was rarely represented in those policy-making processes. And this is how we get the maybe one of the problem of recognition of the role of youth, not only in the development processes but also in conflict transformation processes. What it means is that, for instance, when it comes to solving the issues, let's say the cross-border conflicts with the participation of youth, so still the government comes to, can you hear me, guys? Because sometimes the connection is not okay.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Cool. So what happens is that, for instance, when the conflicts occur in the cross-border sections, mostly what we see is that the participation of youth is really high. the youth is represented widely. But when it comes to solutions, the government, kind of forgets the role of youth, and all of the measures that the government is trying to um, apply to transform the conflicts with the participation of youth, they limit it with the sport events or cultural events, which are the concerts, the festivals. And these are the methods that were widely used during the Soviet Union, what we see from the history. And what we say is that, first of all, we have to shift our approach to use, first of all, and then conflict transformation. Why? Because since young people are involved in those conflicts, they are in the shoes of, dealing with the conflicts in their daily life. And that in many times, young people, because of that, are aware of what works and what doesn't work. For instance, when you come up with the sports competition, still this is the competition, this is the adversarial approach, which means that we kind of come up with the approaches that enhance the tension among young people, especially among those who are in conflict, who still have the biggest prejudices, stereotypes among each other. And then when it comes with the competition, the tension is high and the potential for another conflict is still high. So that's why we, for a long time, we had the discussions and negotiations with the government bodies, not only on the local level, but also on the national level, saying, guys, you need to avoid the competition. You need to avoid the one-off events because they bring the young people, they are not sustainable and they are not bringing the peace, but instead they are putting another brick of conflict. So this is the one of the things that I want to actually highlight. Another thing is that young people in Kyrgyzstan aged between 18 to 35, according to the law, they take the wide proportion of the population. So Kyrgyzstan is the country among other nations that has the growing population of young people, which means that every third citizen in Kyrgyzstan is young. But the role of young people is still being underestimated, which means that when it comes to solution of conflicts, or when it comes to peace building, we see that mostly young people take the peripheral role, which means that they're on the second role or on the third role, but not in the leading role. This is kind of a problem that discourages young people, especially in the regions, in the rural areas. I would say this is not just about this approach or this perception of young people is not only in the conflict transformation, but also like in many spheres in the development process of the country in general. So, but when it comes to conflict transformation, this underestimation of young people plays its specific role. Why? Because when the conflict happens in Kyrgyzstan, especially media reports firstly that young people are the triggers of these conflicts, especially in cross-border conflicts or in interethnic conflicts. What we see from media is that media is actually kind of, highlights that young people are being the problem. This is the first problem. And then another problem with the recognition is that in conflict transformation, it's kind of among decision makers. They are they don't really believe that young people can change the conflict, or they can be the solution, because they say, well, young people, they are being triggers themselves of this conflict, so how can be the solution? And which means that, again, it's not just ageism, it's about also the structural problem of how the wide proportion of the country being left out from the conflict transformation and from the development processes. So this is one of the this is one of the maybe missions of ourselves here in Kyrgyzstan. When we are working on transformation the conflict, we are shifting the perception of decision makers and elder people that young people are the real agents of changes, because they can be they're not just actors or triggers of this conflicts, but also they are the actors of peace. And what we could actually and this this thesis needs the approval, right? You just can't say it sounds like a fairy tale for them, for these decision makers, when we say that, because what they are used to see is that young people are being the trouble. And so to prove that, we come up with the first, inclusivity, which means that we are trying to put as many young people as we can into the conflict transformation process, not only in the process when the conflict is being managed, right? Or being like not only in the implementation process, but also in the development process. So when we come up with the initiative saying, okay, we want to transform this or that conflict, we come up with the discussion first. And we let the voices of young people to be heard, and to hear from them, like, okay, what do you think, what can work or what cannot work? And we come up with diverse decisions. And when these decisions, they're of course these decisions and these approaches are really different from what the elders can imagine, because they are used to come up with sports events and cultural events. And when they see these decisions not only being discussed in the air, but also implemented in real life, and how it shifts the local agenda of conflicts and peace, they come up with the recognition, which is really important, especially in the nations where young people is the growing number of population. So, and the next thing I want to talk about is that, can you hear me, guys? Is everything okay?
Yes, yes.
Cool. So, and the next thing I want to talk about is the right targeting, which means, so in many initiatives here in Kyrgyzstan, we have noticed that young people in those conflict transformation initiatives are mostly the ones that are already, active, that are already, let's say, not troublemakers, not the people who are in conflict actually, but those who are A students. Do you understand that? Like who are very decent students in the school, who are already, engaged with different type of activities like sports and everything. And that's great. I mean, that's really cool to have those active young agents. But the thing is that when we were doing these initiatives, we are kind of, avoid the troublemakers, the ones who, I wouldn't say being trigger of those conflicts, but the ones who are widely involved, deeply involved with this conflict, and who have problem with serious engagement in these conflicts, especially in the when it comes to interethnic conflicts. So from my experience, I would say that when I was working with the mono-ethnic schools, like where the only one ethnic group was represented, I could see that mostly young people were, eager to be involved in our initiatives, and mostly of them, they were very decent, very successful students. But those ones who were not active, they were passive not only in their school life, but also they were passive with any initiative to be part of our projects. So what we had to do, actually, in my experience, we had to, in our project implementation process, you know that very well, and you've been encountering that many times, I'm sure, that you have the strict deadlines, strict schedule, and you can't actually, there is no room to maneuver, to come up with the demand for extra intervention. So what I had to do is that it took many discussions, but it worth it. So instead of 1 month for mobilizing young people in the regions, in rural areas, like in very mountainous areas, and Kyrgyzstan is, popular with mountains, and it's really, challenging to get into rural areas because of the poor roads and poor transportation. But so despite all of these challenges, we had to say, okay, we need to have much time to get into our rural areas again, and to target the right people we want to have in our project. And we could actually, and this process took, instead of 1 month, it took 3 months. But we could engage those young people who had a very bad credibility in their community for being the troublemakers, for causing suspicious, as they, pray by the community members' words, pray too much. You know what I'm saying? It's like suspecting them being like a religious radicalist, etc. So we come up with those guys, and what I could see is that among them, there were those who couldn't even write down their names or write down the applications that we were, encouraging them to write. And it was a very interesting process for me, because those people, they changed vastly during the project. Those gang members of the school, they've changed a lot in the way that they became the real agents of peace, because they were the leading ones among their peers. Before the project, they were the leading ones for being bad guys, bad girls, being in conflicts and triggering them. And then after the project participation, they could change vastly. And that's what I want to say, is that when they changed, they became the positive leaders. They became the ones that the community was referring not for, triggering the conflicts, but for solving them. And it's also one pillar to the to my thesis about inclusiveness of this process, that conflict transformation needs a wide representation of the community members, especially among youth, because among them, even those people who are recognized as troublemakers, these are the people who have real power, especially those ones, for instance, that have the limited physical abilities. They were also part of our initiatives in other projects, and they could actually show how the conflict transformation can be powerful with the diverse representation of young people. And this is actually the approval of the conception, which was unknown for Kyrgyzstani decision makers and elders, that young people can be the change, and they are the change actually in conflict transformation. But when we are saying about that, we also have to think about so one of the pillars that I'm that I want to actually touch upon is that it's not just about the right targeting. It's not just about the bottom to top approach and, wide participation throughout the whole process of conflict transformation, but also it's about the outlets, the tools that we apply. So when I say that, actually there are so many tools, and you guys know that very well from your experience and from the experience of other countries. What I want to say is that you can actually come up with one universal tool for many nations and countries and context. But in our experience, what I could say is that young people have really great power to even when they are limited with the possibilities, with the opportunities, and the tools. For instance, when I say about conflict transformation, we come up with when we come up with a wide range of trainings, and when we do like the infrastructural project, we see that sometimes it doesn't work because young people, they already aware of many complex issues that we do in our trainings. They are pretty aware of how these tools or these outlets can work in their context. So when I say that, I see that young people, you should guys, my recommendation is that you should guys see what tools can be applied and what tools cannot be applied in your context, because we could see from experience of our local organizations is that there was like one approach that was widely used during the conflict transformation, but in some cases it worked, but in many cases, like in majority cases, it didn't work and it was not sustainable. So the response to this is that it happened because we were perceiving one tool as universal, and it's not right. And when it comes to engagement, we should come up with more possibilities to start with the discussion. And I do agree with the previous presentation when we said, so when the presenter said that the conflict has different solutions, and the negotiation and mediation are one of them. And I do really agree with that. And I see that sometimes we apply the tools that don't work, So, and in this case, young people are themselves your guides to come up with the right tools, with the right outlets. So I think we have 3 minutes left. Thank you, Lydia, for message. If you guys have questions, I'm more than eager to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Akalai. We agreed with Rasul that we will combine all the questions, and then we will maybe ask them to both experts from both countries. Okay. Now I would like to introduce our second expert, who is going to talk about Dania, who is going to share her experience. So everybody, I know we're a bit taking much more time, but this is very interesting, and I hope you will stay with us. Now, thank you, Dania, again. I know it's really early, like 5 a.m. in the morning. Thank you for making it here, and we are happy to hear and listen to you.
Thank you, Lydia, for having me and for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here today and sharing with you, listening to other people around the world about their experiences. Thank you, Akalai, for drawing the wider picture of the youth work and like what use work it has been done in Kyrgyzstan. And I know you have a very vast experience. And I would like, on my side, I'd like to share about more like practical tools that we have been using with an organization, Swiss international NGO called Helvetas. I worked with Helvetas, and we launched a project which is called Youth United for the Future. And the problem was that we wanted to tackle the problem of radicalization and violent extremism. So, and our approach is quite unique. So we don't really talk about violent extremism, but we try to work with youth directly with their perception of themselves and their perception of others. So we conducted a baseline survey, and we realized that there is a huge gap between young generation and elder generation. And Akalai has talked about it, that due to some historical reasons, there is a big gap, and youth voice is not being heard. But there is also a cultural reason where the society is hierarchical, so youth doesn't really have a chance to always to express their voice. And it looks like there is the link between young and people and adult people is broken. So our approach is to attract both youth and adults in the process. So one of the things that is really important in working on the intervention is to involve local actors. So along with local actors, we have drafted an intervention, and we introduced a methodology that is based on experiential use education, where we conduct trainings that consist not just of lectures, but different exercises that are very interactive, and that are followed by reflections. So we conducted these kind of trainings for youth separately. Then we also attracted adults that could serve as mentors for youth, and we conducted these trainings for youth. And then we had generation exchange trainings that where we brought them together. We and that was just the beginning. It wasn't just a solution, but it was just the beginning, because in order to address that problem of violent extremism, we had to address the push and pull factors, because when youth is not being heard, when it is in a difficult situation, it is unemployed, and it is very easy to be drawn into radical streams that offer you different things that your current environment cannot offer you, like belonging, like some economic gain, recognition. So and we so after this after these trainings, people, our participants, were able to get together in groups, and also conduct different local community activities and interventions where they could use their knowledge to resolve some local issues on a local level, and which created a spillover effect so that they could also attract other people in their community and improve some community issues. And so as Akalai told, we mostly see the top-bottom approach, and that's not really effective because, like, governments are pursuing their political agendas and don't really seem to actually care much about, young people's needs. So we basically took that bottom-top approach. So young people are being worked with at the bottom, and then they start spreading their their activities on the local level, on the community level, and then it can go further on a higher level. And it's true that what Akalai said, that when we work with young people, it is important to work with the most at risk, and while working with most at risk, although it's much more difficult, we can see the most result. So while during the first year of the project, we came up with a manual, and this manual actually gives very detailed instruction on how to conduct these trainings, and these trainings were also adapted to the local context. And it's very important because it doesn't always work when you come with some methodology and impose it on a local level without taking into consideration the context. So this methodology was adapted to local context, but it also gives advice on how to use it in different places. So I'll provide with the link where you could actually download this manual, and also another manual on professional orientation that was also created during this project. So I'm really sorry about being maybe too slow. I'm a little bit, it's very early in the morning here. So what I wanted to since we were talking about what works and what doesn't work in youth, in working with youth, so I'd like to say that it doesn't work. So as I already told, it doesn't work if you impose solutions without taking into consideration local context, and it's really important to to be able to work with what you have on the ground, not just try to get away with without noticing what is actually happening. Because while we were conducting the project, we actually had to maneuver, we had to add something, we had to in order to have everybody on board, we had to think of their solutions, how to include everybody. So, and it is also important not to have a short-term intervention with no exit strategy. So whenever we intervene, whenever we have something, we have a project, it's important to think about where it will lead us, whether it's gonna, you are present there for 2 years and then it shuts down, and what's the result. So in the project that we conducted, our goal was also to not just to work with the youth, but also to involve local governments so that we can work together, and we can work our way up so that some structural changes are in place. And one of the results of that we are currently working with the Ministry of Education so that we could incorporate some of the methodology that we used to work with youth on the state level to incorporate in the educational structure. So there may be some classes that involve this kind of methodology. And another thing is that it is not enough just to work with youth itself. It is very important to attract adults who could serve as ambassadors for youth in the adult world. As it was mentioned before, youth is not hasn't been taken seriously. So, and for young people, it's really hard, to just go to some state structures and propose something. So that's why it was really important to work together with adult mentors who could collaborate together and come up with solutions on a community level. So as a next step, we hope to have that small grants initiatives that would be directed on advocacy, so that young people along with adults can come up with some issues where they could advocate for the change. And then that way more local stakeholders and state structures could be also involved. So, and it is really important to not just to share knowledge, but to actually put things into practice. So, for example, in this project, we actually, which is actually to help young people to stay away from violent extremism, but we don't really explain youth what is violent extremism and why it is not good for them, why they shouldn't join. We work with them, we win their hearts and minds, we help them to learn about themselves, to learn to communicate with others, to learn to understand that they can actually be agents of change, and they can actually make change in their society, and then actually get involved in the community life and solving the community issues on the ground. So when it comes to violent extremism, they can make their own sound decisions, not to join them, but work and do work in their communities, and also help others to prosper. So that's pretty much it. And if you have more questions about it, you can ask that, and I will share the information, because the methodology is really interesting. It's really unique, and I think that you could make a good use of the manual, and you could probably adopt some of the elements of that methodology into your own work.
Thank you very much, Dania. Now, everybody, I think we are going to open this floor for your questions, right? I hope you're still with us. Are there any questions to maybe first we will deal with our experts from Kyrgyzstan and then turn to experts from Senegal. So yeah, unmute yourself. Okay, I believe that Akalai has left because she had to run somewhere, but we will actually record all the questions and pass it over to her, and then I will get back to you with the answers, okay? Or perhaps we can help you with the answers. Yes, you can switch on the mic whenever you're ready to talk. Thank you. Amelia is at the party, no? Okay, so are there any questions?
Okay, I don't know if like if I decided to unmute it or not. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, the internet connection is not very good here neither. So thank you very much to all the speakers. It was really informative. To jump on the questions fast, because I know we're lacking the time, but I have 3 of them. Feel free to answer whichever you feel more comfortable with. The first one has to do with you both from the Kyrgyzstan speakers and the speakers from Senegal mentioned that the aspect of conflict and opportunity in their introduction. So I would like them both to, all of them, to expand a little bit more on where exactly do they see the opportunity in their everyday work with communities and conflict transformation, and if they can give us some more concrete examples from their experience so far. And that was question number 1. So I can wait for the second one.
You can maybe list all of them, yeah?
Okay. So the second one has to do with where do we put the line in the communities that we work with in terms of identity. For example, in the last talk, we put the line in generational gap. So we addressed, let's say, we divided sides in terms of age. We still, in the other example, we saw gender to play a role. So of course there are intersectionalities like within those groups, and there is an aspect of fragility in a transformation, during transformation. So how do we put that line to put to create social groups in order to address a conflict? Where do we see the right line to put? Those 2 were my questions, and the third one had to do with the aspect of media, which is related to our project, and if they could give us some tools that they use in their work when it comes to media practices for conflict transformation. Punto final now. Thank you very, very much again, all of you.
Thank you. Now, Dania, if you would like to take any questions, that would be lovely. If not, I could also jump into the discussion of the third question. And I guess Mursulu is here, who could also add to it, given that she works and represents the use of OSH. Yes, Dania?
Yes. So the first question was about conflict and opportunity. As far as I understood, where is the opportunity that we saw in the intervention? So I think that while implementing the project, we saw a lot of opportunities. One of the opportunity is that we were able to collaborate with local governments, because local governments also have their own agendas in terms of youth policy, religious policy, um, anti-terrorism policy, prevention of violent extremism. So one of the opportunities is sort of tap to that common goal that we had and try to collaborate, also attracting different resources that these agencies might have, so that we don't just work on our own, but we also involve local stakeholders who are interested in the outcome. And that also gives a lot of opportunities for youth and for the project to amplify their voice. In terms of identity, I'm not sure if I understood well the question, but I understood it as how do we actually, when we draw certain lines in terms of differences, where we, find that common ground, right?
Yes.
So I think that when we actually, that was
Sorry,
really
if I may
interesting.
add, would you like me to explain the question?
Yes.
Yeah, it was well, of course, I'm interested to listen to your opinion about how we find common ground, for sure. But my question was most on how do we define the issue in the first place, in terms of how do we define social groups? Like the line, is it in age? The line, is it in terms of gender? Is it in terms of power issues? There will be new balances, and we will create new imbalances just by defining the issue and the social groups that will play a role in solving the conflict. So how do we do that? How do we map down the social groups? In what terms? It was really interesting when it came to your presentation that you talked about generational gap. Within the previous one, we saw about gender.
Yeah, so in terms of imbalances, I think that it's really difficult to draw a clear line. Just say we had some mentors who were like 25 years old or 70 years old, right? So I think it's more about where these people stand at the time, which positions they hold. So and in terms of imbalances, I think that actually in terms of intergeneration gap, it was very important to actually name the problem, to say, look, there is a problem. Adults and youth doesn't really understand each other. Adults think that these young people, they're only interested in their phones, they don't really care, they don't respect us. And young people think that this elder people, elder generation, they don't understand, they don't listen to us. So, and it's really important to actually not too afraid, you know, to create imbalance, but dive into this problem and put, you know, these different groups together and actually help them to talk to each other and to see where they actually, you know, can collaborate and where they are very different, and that's all right. So I think that we shouldn't afraid to, you know, to create that imbalance, and we also can attract some of that adults who are more open-minded, so that they could also serve as ambassadors to that world of adults who are maybe more closed, who doesn't really get, who doesn't really want to include youth. In terms of media, there wasn't, in our project, there wasn't an aspect of using media as a tool, but we definitely used opportunities to, you know, create videos and to document the process of that we went through to create this methodology and to train youth. So we could also share these videos with other people and other, you know, organization that might be interested. And in the future, we're hoping to, the project is hoping to involve more media and social media into the project work, especially when they do advocacy.
Thank you. I might just add a little bit on the last aspect of how to use media among teenagers, let's say youth, young people. One of the projects that I was involved in actually was in the Middle East, but what we have given young people was props such as mobile phones, okay, the special holders that keep them, and allowed the various groups of these youth to demonstrate how they see this conflict and how they want this to be prevented via music videos, let's say. So added a touch of this creativity. So afterwards, we had around 5 video clips were produced, after which there was a discussion held among all of these young people, just to see how they really feel. And normally, sometimes kids or young people, they can really talk and talk by sort of deliver their emotions, you know, message by means of music or video, which are the sources of as well media, yeah, that could be used in social media. So that was one of the tools that I experienced personally. So I believe we have 3 more questions from a Lithuanian team, and you can all read it in the chat box. Okay, on the right. Dear Senegalese team, would you like also do you guys have any questions to our 2 experts from Senegal?
No. Yes, thank you for the presentation and the questions. First of all, I would like to thank the presenters on youth in conflict transformation. We learned a lot about your contribution, the 3 of you. I just want to have to make a contribution on what you said. I think that it's very interesting when you talk about shift in the perception of decision making, the youth and the community. I think that it's very important too, when, as you said, to ask the youth what are their perceptions of themselves and others. because somewhere you said that they triggers the conflict. So when they question, when they bring questions about who they are, how they perceive themselves, I think that it's very interesting for them to make a link with the way they perceive themselves and the conflict situation they bring about. So I think that when they know who they are, it will be easier for them to avoid to trigger conflict in their communities. And I think this is a very interesting question to ask to all the youth of the world. Who are you? How do you perceive yourself? If they have a low esteem of themselves, I think that sure they will always be involved in conflict. They will always, I don't know how to say, but when you have a very a very little esteem of yourself, you don't value anything, then to be involved in a conflict is very easy for you to it's very easy for you to be involved in a conflict. And I think that it's a very important question, and I think that we can also ask it to our youth here in Casamance. How do you perceive yourselves and other people? How do you perceive? I talk about it because it's a very challenge here for us to work with the youth in conflict resolution, because they say that the adults use them to do small things. And I understand that when you want to learn, you have to follow. You cannot just get up and say, I'm going to be involved in the peace process. You have to learn. And by going along with the adults, you learn. You have to look at them doing, listen to what they say, and then you learn to practice. What I also like in your intervention is generation exchange trainings. I think that you talk about it. It's very important to bring the different generation together. And also maybe if you don't do it, maybe bring also together generation and the disabled, because sometimes during the conflict we have disabled people due to the conflict. I think that it's also interesting to work with those disabled, to bring them together with the young people, the elders, and them to talk, to discuss, because nobody can solve their problem better than them. They know what they need. So we can listen to them, tell us what they need, even if we want to make change for them. When you want to bring a change for someone, you have to know, to talk with him, to know what he really needs. Because sometimes I can say that this person, this disabled, may need a chair wheel, okay, to move. But this may not be his first need. The person may need it, but it may not come as the first one. So I have to ask, what is your first need, and then start to work on those needs. I also agree with you when you talk about imposing solutions. We do not have to impose solutions to people. If you want to impose solution, you will lose the people, because they need to understand what you want to do. It's very important to work in collaboration, as you said. When you collaborate with people, then you may have them and they will bring the solutions with you along. I also want to share another experience we have here. The women and the youth are working together, not only the elders, but specifically the women and the youth. We have a coalition between the women and the youth, and we want to talk with a funder. So she initiated this to put them together, because we know that in few years, I will not be here to keep on these conflict resolution. So we have to train the young people to take after us when we are no longer here, when we look for something else. So this training, this collaboration between women and the youth, we practice it here in Senegal. So thank you very much for sharing with us. We appreciate, and I think that we'll take some of what you say and adapt it to our own context. Thank you.
Senegalese expert about your presentation and the question of Lithuanian peace.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, just some words about the collaboration that should maybe exist between youth and elders. My colleague, Mrs. Leonie Gomis, okay, a while ago began talking about how women and youth work here in Casamance, mainly in the Women's Platform for Peace in Casamance. But what I should say is that most of the time, youth are accused of being a bit too ambitious, too impatient, because most of the time they want to gain what they have to gain just right now. And for elders with youth, it just boils down to getting getting something for them, kind of promotion, is that camp? Kind of maybe going abroad or just having some money. When it just comes to that, I think that it's a big problem because when you work as far as in the framework of advocacy, for me it is important first of all to get engaged. And when you get engaged, normally you shouldn't kind of measure or you shouldn't kind of just be bargaining. Okay, so but to kind of solve these little conflicts that exist between elders and youth, kind of you talked about a generational gap, maybe. But for me, it is important, okay, for youth and elders to communicate a lot so as to be able to solve these little problems. Because just simply as citizens, they may or they need to work hand in hand in order to, I don't know, kind of bring the required solutions to the conflicts that are facing. If not, they will just be having some kind of conflicts because most of the time elders think that youth are not trustworthy. You know, when you work in the advocacy meaning domain, you need much time to achieve something, and most of the time youth are not very patient to wait for that. Let me just finish here on this point. Here in the Women's Platform for Peace in Casamance, in the Mrs. Gomez said a while ago that is a kind of an umbrella association. In among the associations that form this Women's Platform, we have a youth association, okay, and among these youth association, we have an intern who is here right now among the team, and I think that is something which is very telling. I myself, the president, is I don't know a kind of not just maybe a mother, but a kind of mom to me as the Secretary General. So youth are involved here, okay, as much as we can, even if working with youth is not very easy. Because for me, they should kind of solve the identity crisis problem, maybe. Why am I here? Okay, what am I here for? And for me, it is very important. If not, they want to get engaged, and maybe they couldn't take over, and they should. As far as our Lithuanian team is concerned, as a teacher, I am mostly interested, okay, in what they are working, okay, in or what meaning is I don't know their concern. But I should say that here in Casamance or in Senegal, there is not a kind of active advocacy, okay, in the kind of domain of trying to implement or even to have the peace education process or just peace building involved in the curriculum, because there are kind of many problems. Let's just remind everybody, if need be, that the conflict here in Casamance is okay, lasted just 3 decades. But let's also just say that the Senegalese government, okay, succeeded in kind of making the conflict unknown. okay, meaning internationally speaking. What they even, how they even qualify it is a kind of the containment policy. That's why people are most of the time reluctant, okay, of talking about the conflict, okay, not saying even trying to kind of have active advocacy in having them in the national curriculum, even if there are some kind of parallel, not just curriculum, but parallel documents that are used in schools, but most of the time it's not kind of the official curriculum. But I think that it is very important for teachers to get involved in this kind of not just legally, but maybe publicly. But even if they don't do it, even if they don't do it kind of publicly or officially, we have teachers in remote areas, okay, when the conflict, when we don't have this kind of role we have in the conflict, when it was a kind of hard in the mid 90s, we had teachers in remote areas most of the time who played very important roles in terms of mediation, okay, in terms of even kind of peace building, because most of the time people, even in remote areas, most of the time they trust the teachers. That's why we have kind of education à la paix in French, but in English you can have peace education. We have it, but it's not something that is kind of in the official curriculum for the time being. If I'm very okay, if my I don't know if I can remember very well. So I think that this was a little contribution I had, and we are very eager to kind of continue this kind of work or conversation as far as implementing, okay, peace education, or as far as bringing teachers to play some roles, okay, as far as peace building is concerned. Thank you. Did I say something?
Yes. Rasul, what do you think? We wrap up now. There are many questions that I think we will forward to our experts who could then answer them. And I believe we have been holding you here for 2 hours now, so I think it's time for you to rest. And thank you to all experts. And if you have any questions, could you please leave them in this chat? Okay, we will get back to you. And again, thank you.
We hear Amelia's
Sorry, is it possible to?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in Senegal and to hear from you and to be in touch with the people from Kyrgyzstan. I would like us to have the contact details from the speakers, if that's possible, and some information from their for their organizations. That would be fantastic. Thank you again. Really looking forward to meet you all.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so we will share the contacts of our experts. Yes, and there you have a comment from one of our experts. So we will keep in touch with you. We will send a follow-up email, okay? Once again, thank you very much, and we will see you soon, hopefully in Senegal. Yes?
Thank you, guys. Lydia, just not forget to send us somehow this recording so we can upload it in the...
Absolutely. It's 2 hours, 18 minutes, and I will... Okay?
It's a nice...
Okay, thank you. I will stop the recording now. Thank you very much.